Recording in progress.
Hello everyone. I research themes relating to religion, and my academic affiliation requires me or even compels me to write in a certain technical style. If you read my books or articles to find out what it is that I think, you may be disappointed. More often than not, I will tell you what I think about what other people think. Having said that, I'm often asked by friends, acquaintances, and relatives, Hindu, Christian, and Muslim, about what I think regarding these three great religious traditions: Hinduism, Christianity, and Islam. Looking back at the last 3 decades of my life, I realize that one of the most crucial forces shaping my academic life is that I knew and I lived with Hindus, Christians, and Muslims before I started studying Hinduism, Christianity, and Islam. To put it bluntly, before I picked up the theological text, I was always already immersed in an existential context. If at the age of 10, you know John Smith as a friend, when John Smith later becomes the most important astrophysicist ever, you continue to see John Smith primarily as a friend, not as an astrophysicist. Likewise, today when I'm in the company of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims in India, I can readily see that some of the things that they say are shaped by certain texts in the Upanishads, the Bible, and the Quran. In some cases, I may even be able to tell them what they should not say, because the Upanishads, the Bible, or the Quran do not quite allow that manner of speaking or thinking or living. And yet, in one sense, I do not see them as Hindus, Christians, or Muslims at all. I see them in just the way I did at the age of 10, namely as friends, acquaintances, and relatives. Now, I primarily study texts, not contexts. Most of these texts are related in some way or the other to Hinduism. Sometimes they are related to Christianity, and in recent years, increasingly related to Islam. From these texts, I study certain concepts such as God, soul, reality, knowledge, morality, reason, language, and so on. By temperament, I am what is called a comparativist. That is, I explore certain concepts in dialogical conversation across Hindu, Christian, and Muslim borderlines. However, my academic affiliation has compelled me to reconstruct or reinvent myself as a specialist. That is, someone who explores concepts primarily with reference to Hindu social religious worldviews. I try my best to become and remain a specialist of this type. Possibly most of the time, I fail to do so. Be that as it may, I will now share with you three of my reflections on Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. These reflections are offered at a metaphorical altitude of 20,000 feet. That is, I'm going to trace out some long-range trajectories across the landscapes of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims that I see from a conceptual level of 20,000 feet. I should say that I offer these trajectories as tentative hypotheses I have developed over several decades of reading, thinking, writing, rethinking, and living. Before I proceed, here is a note on what is called positionality. These days, it has seemingly become very important to state what position it is that you speak from before you start speaking at all. In a specifically religious context, I do not myself endorse this principle, largely because I know that I cannot fulfill it. I simply do not know what my position is. In the categorical terms that are demanded on such occasions, whether by immigration officers or by academic publishers. If I were to say that I am a Hindu Catholic or that I am an Islamized Christian, these hybrid labels generally generate more obscurity than light. On this occasion, let me say that I am an agnostic Catholic. That is, I am agnostic with respect to the truth claims that according to the Vatican, you are required to endorse and live by for your eternal salvation. So with respect to the crucial truth claim, Jesus Christ is the Son of God, I neither affirm it nor negate it. The space of epistemic non-determinacy is my agnosticism. If that is so, why not describe myself as an agnostic? Full stop. Why add the qualifier Catholic? To cut a long story short, at a certain stage of my life, I was deeply drawn into the gravitational orbit of the Roman Catholic Church's symbolic vision that the heart of reality is the power of regenerative love that is mysteriously working its way through the brokenness of the world by becoming concretely focalized within it at a certain spatio-temporal stage. Now, I don't mean to suggest that agnostic Catholic is an officially recognized religious standpoint. From the Vatican's point of view, I am simply a heretic, most likely. Can one accept a religious vision without endorsing any truth claim associated with it? Can a religion be based on what someone may call mere poetry, or mere feeling, or mere conviction? These are difficult questions, difficult philosophical questions. Because I don't want my present set of reflections to become a lecture on academic philosophy, I will not directly address these questions. In the long run, we are all dead. And this is how I would like to die. With the conscious awareness that I am going to die in the next 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, I will say, Jesus Christ, the second person of the Holy Undivided Trinity. For all these years, I have struggled to affirm that you are indeed the way, the truth, and the life. There is a cognitive deficit between what I see with my physical eyes and what I do not see in this direct way, this deficit can be addressed or fulfilled by what is called faith, which is a form of volitional surrender. You do not know that something is the case, but you surrender yourself to the possibility that it is the case. At certain times in my life, I have had this strong faith too, but at certain other times, this faith has waned, declined, and almost disappeared. In any case, show it to me in the next 5 minutes that you are indeed who the Bible, who the Vatican says you are. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm possibly not in those 5 minutes. So I ask myself, what will happen to me after those 5 minutes? Will I rise to a different type of reality where it will be unveiled to me in the twinkling of an eye that Christ is truly the way, the truth, and the life? I suppose a good Catholic would say, or would have to say, yes, this is indeed what will happen. I pause, not quite knowing what to say. Inhabiting this form of silence of unknowing is difficult, even painful. For the mind, the heart, the soul wants to know. It wants to be able to say, this is it. That is the answer. These are the reasons. So, from one perspective, to be an agnostic Catholic is to accept a form of spiritual loneliness. As an agnostic Catholic, I do not belong to one clearly marked community. There is no local church of agnostic Catholics that I can attend on Sundays or at Christmas and Easter. When I do occasionally go to a Catholic church, it is with the awareness that even if I somehow accept it in its authoritative fullness, it cannot accept me, not in my present condition. From another perspective, however, my agnostic Catholicism has given me a form of spiritual abundance. Not having to constantly worry whether claims made by Hindus, Christians, and Muslims are true or false has opened up existential spaces where I explore how these claims are deeply interwoven with the concrete realities of our everyday lives, our fears, our anxieties, our hopes, our joys, and our smiles and our tears. As spontaneously as a sunflower turns towards the sun, in the company of Hindus, I have become a Hindu. In the company of Christians, I have become a Christian. And in the company of Muslims, I have become a Muslim. These claims to become this or become that will probably be deeply contested by some Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. In one sense, that is indeed what they should do. And I don't mean to downplay or trivialize the significance of truth claims in shaping one's spiritual journey. Yet, I simply report what I have felt and continue to feel in such company. Here is one way to summarize these existential reflections. For many people I have met, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians are separated by what we may call the wall of pure difference. Hindus belong to Mercury, Christians belong to Venus, and Muslims belong to Jupiter. In fact, this analogy is not quite accurate, for after all, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter do belong to the same solar system. So I should say, paraphrasing their view, Hindus belong to one galactic system, Christians belong to one galactic system, and Muslims belong to one galactic system. When I meet such people, I wish I could somehow make them see, even if only for 15 seconds, Hindus, Christians, and Muslims the way I see them. But I do not have this cosmic power. Or I wish I could get the United Nations to appoint me ambassador of goodwill to Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. But I don't think I will be successful on that front either. I'm a recluse and I don't like traveling to places, even to academic conferences. In my estimate, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians are separated across a landscape shaped by what we may call dialectical difference. To say that you are dialectically different is to say that you are different with respect to the other with whom you otherwise share certain commonalities. For instance, you may be dialectically different from your sibling with whom you share certain family resemblances. On certain occasions, you may wish to highlight the differences, and on certain occasions, you may wish to highlight the commonalities. But the context-relative commonalities and the context-relative differences are not mutually opposed. The differences gain their significance through the underlying commonalities, and the commonalities come into existence through the expressed differences. So here are three tentative hypotheses across the socio-religious worldviews of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims in the form of a dialectical difference. Let me repeat that I am offering these hypotheses from a conceptual level of 20,000 feet. I will not give concrete examples for my claims, such as Hindus who are Vaishnava say this, or Calvinist Christians believe this, or Sufis in Central Asia affirm this. Those who are familiar with these worldviews will hear what I'm saying precisely in what I am not saying. Number one, is God a stern schoolmaster, or is God a long-suffering companion? There are two types each of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. According to the first type, God is a stern schoolmaster. God says, here is the truth, and following the truth means ticking these boxes on the right and not ticking those boxes on the left. Let's see now how you do it. Perhaps you will succeed in this enterprise and you will be crowned with glory by God. Perhaps you will fail in this enterprise and all kinds of unspeakable things I will not speak of here, will happen to you. This does not mean that God is some remote observer standing 20 million miles away from you. God does help you in many ways. God instructs you, God gives you wisdom, God shows you the correct path. But the focus is otherwise on you. If you get it wrong, don't be a crybaby, chin up. And this is because God does not cry. God shines with the imperial grandeur of the sun, which illuminates everyone equally. According to the second type, God is a long-suffering companion. Once again, God says, here is the truth, and following the truth means ticking these boxes on the right and not ticking those boxes on the left. Let's see now how you do it. However, this time, let's see now how you do it is to be read in the following way. Well, I know you are going to make a mess of it. So, FYI, for your information, I am always here to clean up after you. In the end, it does not greatly matter who is serving whom. I, your God, serving you, or you, my servant, serving me. What is true is that when you suffer, I suffer even more than you yourself do. But my suffering is not a form of weakness. In fact, this reciprocity is the true strength. Number two, is God an austere ascetic or is God an extravagant eclectic? Again, there are two types each of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. According to the first type, God is an austere ascetic. God is like a wife who says to her spouse, don't you dare give me flowers or a diamond ring on our wedding anniversary. You must not contaminate the spirit of pure love with any such material expressions. So for the first type, any attempt to locate the incomprehensible God within human comprehensibility is a reprehensible error that must be weeded out. Focus on the pure stream of white light before it lamentably disintegrates into the seven diverse colors of the rainbow. According to the second type, God is an extravagant eclectic. God is the cosmic banker who gives you a very long line of credit. God is like a husband who says to his spouse, bring me flowers and diamond rings from 21 different countries and 41 different islands. The more, the merrier. For the second type, if everything contains traces or residues or particles or signs of the divine, everything can be skillfully and sensitively recalibrated to remind you of the divine. If God is omnipresent, God is somehow present even in hell. Or perhaps I should say, especially in hell, including the hellish conditions that structure our own spatio-temporal world. God sets you the right question and allows you, even enables you, to experiment with truth. For God is the truth that remains hidden in plain sight. Number three, is God an urban citizen or is God a homeless migrant? Once again, there are two types each of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. According to the first type, God is an urban citizen. God is on the side of those human beings who build great civilizations with magnificent bridges, highways, and railroads. God's presence is expressed in and through human affluence, majesty, and splendor. This is not to say that they think God physically resides inside a structure composed by their hands, but that God favors those who seek solidity, consistency, and even permanence. Those who are at the top of the social pyramid are there because God wishes them to remain there and ensure or promote the stability of this pyramid. According to the second kind, according to the second type, God is a homeless migrant. God is on the side of those human beings who are broken, oppressed, crushed, fragmented, and dispersed across the trackless deserts and the heartless plains of the world. God's presence is expressed in and through the emptiness of the blue skies across which the yellow birds fly without leaving behind any mark, and the freedom of the wind that blows wherever it wills. This is not to say that they are averse to building structures for human habitation, but they remind you that human beings may build many a house, but they have only one true home, namely God. Only God can rehabilitate pilgrims from this world, which is a resting place perpetually pointing towards the horizon that yet remains unexplored. So these are my hypotheses across the terrains of Hindus, Christians, and Muslims, structured by dialectical difference. The more minutely you study a particular strand of Hindu, Christian, or Muslim belief and practice, the more likely it is that the strand will remind you of something you have encountered elsewhere. If you ask 20 people what it is that they really want, and all of them say, I want to be completely different from everyone else, precisely that aspiration to complete difference makes them completely similar. What then about the question of truth? I frequently receive emails asking me to demonstrate to Christians and to Muslims that Hinduism is the way, the truth, and the life. Occasionally, I also receive emails claiming that Hindu religious pathways are oriented towards an abyss of blinding darkness. What can I say? What could I say? All these claims are expressions of what I have called pure difference. So I stare passively into the distant horizon. All I can offer the world is the sigh of my jaded soul. I have dedicated my academic life to addressing, in one way or another, this question of truth. Yet, midway through the journey of life, I find myself in a dark wood, not knowing which way the right path is. As an agnostic Catholic, I do not have the certitude that today I am indeed walking on the right path. Perhaps I am already on the road to perdition, and I will spend the hereafter in a lake of fire and brimstone. Perhaps. We shall see when and if we get there. Perhaps we can then even compare notes, if the powers that be will allow us to do so. In the meantime, however, I do have the consolation of knowing that whenever I converse with a Hindu, a Christian, or a Muslim about their religious worldview, I slip into that worldview and begin to inhabit it right there and then. I'm not a spectator observing them or even dialoguing with them. Rather, in a certain way and to a certain degree, I become them. That reality has been the greatest consolation of my life. And that reality will possibly be the consolation of my death.